Prior to the colonial period, Britain bought goods like textiles and rice from Indian producers and paid for them in the normal way, mostly with silver, as they did with any other country. But something changed in 1765, shortly after the East India Company took control of the subcontinent and established a monopoly over Indian trade. The East India Company began collecting taxes in India and then cleverly used a portion of those revenues to fund the purchase of Indian goods for British use. In simple words, British traders acquired goods from Indian peasants and weavers using money that had just been taken from them. It was a scam, theft on a grand scale. Yet most Indians were unaware of what was going on, because the agent who collected the taxes was not the same as the one who showed up to buy their goods. Some of the stolen goods were consumed in Britain, and the rest were re-exported elsewhere. The re-export system allowed Britain to finance a flow of imports from Europe, including strategic materials like iron, tar and timber, which were essential to Britain's industrialization. Indeed, the Industrial Revolution depended in large part on this systematic theft from India. After the British Raj took over in 1858, colonizers added a special new twist to the tax and buy system. Indian producers were allowed to export their goods directly to other countries, but Britain made sure that the payments for those goods nonetheless ended up in London. Basically, anyone who wanted to buy goods from India would do so using special council bills, a unique paper currency issued only by the British Crown. And the only way to get those bills was to buy them from London with gold or silver. So traders would pay London in gold to get the bills, and then use the bills to pay Indian producers. When Indians cashed the bills in at the local colonial office, they were paid in rupees out of tax revenues, money that had just been collected from them. So, once again, they were not in fact paid at all, they were defrauded. This corrupt system meant that even while India was running an impressive trade surplus with the rest of the world, a surplus that lasted for 3 decades in the early 20th century, it showed up as a deficit in the national accounts because the real income from India's exports was appropriated in its entirety by Britain. Britain used the windfall from this fraudulent system to fuel the engines of imperial violence, funding the invasion of China in the 1840 and the suppression of the Indian Rebellion in 1857. And this was on top of what the Crown took directly from Indian taxpayers to pay for its wars. And that's not all. Britain used this flow of tribute from India to finance the expansion of capitalism in Europe and regions of European settlement, like Canada and Australia. So not only the industrialization of Britain, but also the industrialization of much of the Western world was facilitated by extraction from the colonies. If India had been able to invest its own tax revenues and foreign exchange earnings in development, as Japan did, there's no telling how history might have turned out differently. India could very well have become an economic powerhouse. Centuries of poverty and suffering could have been prevented. According to a 2014 YouGov poll, 50% of people in Britain believe that colonialism was beneficial to the colonies. Yet during the entire 200-year history of British rule in India, there was almost no increase in per capita income. In fact, during the last half of the 19th century, the heyday of British intervention, income in India collapsed by half. The average life expectancy of Indians dropped by a fifth from 1870 to 1920. Tens of millions died needlessly of policy-induced famine. Britain didn't develop India. Quite the contrary, as Patnaik's work makes clear, India developed Britain. What does this require of Britain today? An apology? Absolutely. Reparations? Perhaps, although there is not enough money in all of Britain to cover the sums that Patnaik identifies. In the meantime, we can start by setting the story straight. We need to recognize that Britain retained control of India not out of benevolence, as our schoolbooks would have it, but depended on violent theft from other lands and other peoples. By India, I do not mean only India but also Pakistan and Bangladesh, which were parts of India during British rule. Hope you have liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts on this. Thanks.